Hey everybody, this is our science read aloud called Solutions Up Close. Salt solutions are transparent. You can't see anything in them. When you look at a salt solution with a hand lens, what do you see? Still nothing. In fact, you can't see anything in a salt solution, even with the most powerful light microscope. Does that mean the salt is gone when it dissolves? No, the salt is still there. To understand what happens to the salt, you have to think very small. You have to think about pieces of salt, so small that it takes billions and billions of them to make a tiny salt crystal. We can call the tiniest piece of salt a salt particle. Water is also made of particles. Water particles are different from salt particles, but they are about the same size. In liquid water, the particles are always moving around and over one another. Let's imagine that we can see the salt particles. We'll represent one salt particle with this pink circle. One tiny crystal of salt might look like this. The salt crystal is a solid. It has mass, shape, and a definite volume. Here is a container of water a million times smaller than a 5 milliliter spoonful. If we could see the water particles, they may look like this. Water is a liquid. The particles are moving over and around one another all the time. That's how the water flows. Water has a definite volume, but it changes shape to fit its containers. When you put a crystal of salt into a container of water, the salt sinks to the bottom. The particles of water bump into the salt crystal. This action knocks the salt particles off the crystal. The loose salt particles become surrounded by the water particles. The salt particles are carried into the water. They end up spread evenly among the water particles. The particles of the salt among the water particles are dissolved in salt. The particles of salt still on the bottom of the container are undissolved salt crystals. A solution forms when the salt particles break free from the salt crystal and get carried away by the water particles. The breaking away and getting carried away is the process of dissolving. Interpreting the diagram. Work with a partner at the diagrams on page 26 and 27 and describe to your partner what happens when the salt dissolves in water. That is your task for today. Describe to me what happens when you put the salt into water. Here's one salt particle being dropped into water. Here's the diagram. The salt particle goes down to the bottom. Tell me what happens to it and how it dissolves.